Well, hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. As you already noticed, I got my Mercedes-Benz hat on today because we are going to test, no, not this dog, this friendly dog I presume, but this car, which is a Mercedes-Benz GLA 250e, a plug-in hybrid model, and the only plug-in hybrid version you can get on the GLA range. Unfortunately, by the time this video comes out, the facelift of the GLA will probably be launched. I don't know the details right now, but I'm hoping there aren't huge differences done to the car before I publish this video. But stick around and we're going to talk about everything you need to know about the drivetrain of this car, how it handles, what kind of range you should expect, and so on. So this is it. What you're looking at is a GLA 250e, the only plug-in hybrid you can buy in the GLA range. So you probably are interested about its electric range and the fuel consumption. But before we get there, let's talk about its exterior design for a bit. This car is built on the same platform as the B class or the A class and everything in between, like the CLA, the shooting brake, and so on, all the varieties of the A class. And it looks roughly like its brethren. So you have the same daytime running LEDs over here in the headlamp and the same overall design up front. This car is fitted with the AMG package, which means you get this fancy grille up here with those diamond shaped chrome bits, and you have this more aggressive bumper with fake air intakes on the sides. This car is also wearing the red, passion red I think it's called. The car is part of the Mercedes-Benz manufacture package catalog, and it is about 950 euros. So since it comes with the AMG package, it also has 19-inch AMG wheels, 5 double spokes, and well, I don't mind the design of the GLA that much. I like this black and red combo. I like the black trims around the windows, and combined with the plastic protection covers around the wheel wells and the door sill, I think it looks pretty nice. It's 4.4 meters long and it has a wheelbase of almost 2.8 meters, so it's pretty welcoming for passengers, if you will. We'll see about that when we get in. But I actually like the fact that the doors cover the sills. So whenever the car is dirty, such as today, because it kept raining, I think your trousers will be safe because the door covers the door sill. Yeah, so around the back, the same design is used. I like this split tail light design. Basically, once you open the tailgate, half of the stoplight is on the tailgate. The AMG package brings this diffuser at the bottom of the rear bumper, and we have fake trims instead of real exhaust. We have a protection plate over here for getting your luggage in and out. Let's open the boot. Ta-da! 385 liters, not a lot. You lose about 50 liters because of the hybrid character of the car. But mind you, the battery isn't in the boot floor. It is under the rear seat. But some of the space is taken by the electronics needed to control that battery and the wiring and so on. So yeah, I like the fact that you have a 40-20-40 split rear bench, which should help you load bigger items. And another thing you will notice, apart from the E at the end of the car's name, is the fact that we have two covers on the car, because this one is for recharging the battery in the floor, if you will. And unlike on most plug-in hybrids, which only come with this type 2 charger that can take up to 7.4 kilowatts on most cars, some do take up more, we have a fast charging port over here, a CCS port. Basically, you can use DC chargers with powers of up to 24 kilowatts, and at those kind of chargers, you can actually replenish the car's battery in about 25 minutes, which is pretty awesome, because most plug-in hybrids require at least 2 to 3 hours to replenish their batteries. So since we're talking about the battery, it has a usable capacity of 10.5 kilowatt hours. Let's get inside. Well, I did have a bit of a surprise because even premium manufacturers cut on costs these days, and I've seen plenty of cars with cheaper plastics being used in the back compared to the front. Well, not in this case. We have the same soft touch material on the top of the door card over here. This is some kind of vegan leather. We have Alcantara on most of the door card, and it looks and feels nice to the touch. The only area where they could have done better is here, where we have some scratchy plastic. This is the rear bench, done in leather and Alcantara. I like the color combo, the contrasting red stitching, and it looks really nice. Let's see what kind of space we have. So while I do have plenty of space under the front seat for my feet, I don't have a lot of leg room. This seat has been adjusted in my comfortable driving position. I'm 6 feet tall and about 250 pounds, and this is how another person of my stature fits behind. So you can fit, but it's not going to be a very comfortable fit. But I do have plenty of headroom. So yeah, that's a big plus in my book. It's not too crowded, no, not too cramped in the back of this car, but it's not S-Class levels of room either. This is the dashboard, the same design you will see on the A-Class, B-Class, and so on. We've gotten used to it over the years. It looks nice, but the materials could have been a bit better. Let's hop in the front to talk about them. What I do like is the fact that we have the same materials on the front door card, but we have some carbon fiber inserts over here. And the front seats are also done in the same materials, leather and Alcantara, with contrasting stitching. Big plus on my book. I would have liked the seats to be electrically adjustable. These are manually adjustable seats, and at the price tag this car has, they could have included electrically adjustable seats, and they are a bit on the stiffer side of things, but I guess that's what comes with the AMG package. I also like the steering wheel. Let's hop in and take a closer look. So this is the modern day AMG steering wheel you will find in most cars, with these two spokes that include controls for a variety of functions. We have these touch sensitive buttons over here that allow you to control a screen at a time. And why am I saying a screen at a time? Because even though this looks like a single screen, they are actually two screens, one for the infotainment system, one for the instrument cluster. Let's start the car up. And ta-da! This is, as you probably guessed, the MBUX system. It works pretty nicely, no complaints, the graphics are great, and it moves rather nicely. We do have a special menu over here for the hybrid drivetrain of the car. You can choose a number of options over here, and of course behind the steering wheel we have the same layout as you find in most Mercedes-Benz cars these days, and you can adjust the way the information is displayed. I prefer the classic mode, but you can adjust like the information displayed over here if you don't want the speedometer, or if you don't want a rev counter. So plenty of choices for you. I like this carbon fiber detail over here and on the front door, right passenger door of course, and I don't like the amount of cheap black plastic used on the center console or around the vents over here. So this could have been done better, and it also squeaks quite a lot if you press on it. An issue Mercedes-Benz has known for a while. We have the connector for Android Auto because it's done with a wired connection for some reason, and this is an area for controlling a variety of functions of the car. But this trackpad is quite sensitive, and if you use this cable and touch it, it will change settings on the screen. Well, that's that. That said, let's hop on the road and see how this car drives and talk about its technical specs. Let's go. Now that we're behind the wheel of the GLA 250e, let's talk about the technical side of things. So what hides under the hood of a car with an E suffix? Well, this is a plug-in hybrid model, as I already mentioned. It uses a 1.3 liter engine, petrol engine with 4 cylinders, developed in collaboration with Nissan and Renault. It's a rather well-known engine by now, which develops 160 horsepower and is aided in its duties by an electric motor good for 102 horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque that's integrated into the transmission. Speaking of the transmission, it's an 8-speed dual clutch gearbox. I think it's the first time I'm driving a car, a Mercedes-Benz fitted with this gearbox. And all of the power goes to the front wheels alone. You cannot get this car with an all-wheel drive setup. So in total, the car can rely not on 260 horsepower, but on 218 at most, split between the two power sources, and up to 450 Newton meters of torque, which are pretty good numbers for a car of this size. Now, I should mention that the weight of this car is 1.7 tons at the bare minimum, without fluids and without a driver. So yeah, it's a bit heavier than a regular Mercedes-Benz GLA 250. The battery, as I already mentioned, is hidden under the rear seats. It has a usable capacity of 10.5 kilowatt hours and a total capacity of about 15 kilowatt hours. So that huge buffer, that's like a 30% buffer, tells me that this car was created with a hybrid drivetrain in mind. Basically, that huge power reserve means you will be able to drive this car as a hybrid around town for extended periods of time. And that's what happens once the battery is seemingly depleted, because as it is the case with all plug-in hybrids right now, even though the car will show you that you have zero electric range left, as it is the case right now with this car, you still have like a reserve in that battery to allow the car to be driven as a hybrid. So basically, once that the battery runs out, you will drive this car like you would a Prius, for example. So it will set off in electric mode, it will coast a lot with the internal combustion engine turned off, and on braking it will regenerate energy and replenish the battery as much as possible. So quite an interesting setup, just like it is in the case of any plug-in hybrid right now. Now, a lot of people will be curious about the fuel consumption, because that's why you get a plug-in hybrid, right? So, and the electric range. I managed to get only 34 kilometers of pure electric range out of this car on one go. So I tested the electric range twice. The first time I only got 34 kilometers. The second time I got 45 kilometers. So it will depend a lot on the way you use it. The first time I drove it outside the city limit at higher speeds, 110 kilometers for about half of the session, and then the other half I spent around town. The second time around, I only drove this car around town, but it was at night, so the city was pretty empty already. I would say around 40 kilometers of range should be a realistic expectation from this car, not 54 or 60 kilometers as much as Mercedes-Benz claims. Now, after I depleted the battery, the car started using its internal combustion engine. And for the first 100 kilometers covered, the average fuel consumption was about 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers covered, which is okay for a car with so much power. Then I drove this car without any battery charge from the get-go. And I saw that if you drive it like a normal car without charging the battery whatsoever, the energy consumption, the fuel consumption around town is around 9 liters per 100 kilometers covered, which once again, considering the heavy traffic I was facing, is not that bad. Outside the city limits, on a series of B roads, I saw an average fuel consumption of about 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers covered, and on the highway at 130 kilometers an hour, that number rose to 9 liters per 100 kilometers covered, which shouldn't be a terrible issue. I mean, it is pretty high, but keep in mind that on the highway, the car only relies on the internal combustion engine. Furthermore, that an additional issue is the fact that since the battery has been positioned where the fuel tank used to be, the fuel tank was moved towards the back, and it only has a capacity of 35 liters. With 35 liters of petrol, your range will probably be around 400-450 kilometers at most. So that could be an issue for some people. Not necessarily the high fuel consumption, but the range you get with such a small tank in the back. So I would like you to tell me in the comment section below if you think this is an acceptable fuel consumption for such a car. But right now I'm going to talk about the way it drives. So since we have some additional weight on board because of the hybrid drivetrain, yes, this car is a bit heavier than a normal GLA, and the suspension had to be adapted. So the suspension is a bit stiffer than you would normally find on a GLA, and that's particularly felt over short bumps. where the chassis starts to dance around a little bit. It's not a terrible issue, but you do feel it. So it's not as comfortable as you would expect the Mercedes-Benz to be. Furthermore, I noticed that the suspension is quite noisy in this car. So there's plenty of sound making its way into the cabin. And that's not the only area where I noticed the sound insulation isn't great. The internal combustion engine under the hood is also quite noisy. And I drove it on a number of other cars, to be honest. None of them were so noisy as this one. And I think that has to do with the fact that we have no sound insulation whatsoever under the hood. For example, I popped the hood earlier. There's no, I don't know, material. Usually cars have a sound insulation system under the hood. This one doesn't have one. I don't know exactly why. And yeah, the engine noise does make its way into the cabin rather fast, and it becomes troublesome at certain points. There's another issue as well. So whenever the car goes from coasting or from driving in electric mode to turning on the internal combustion engine, usually it turns on the internal combustion engine at above 2000 rpm, around 2000 rpm. Let's not say above, but around 2000 rpm, and it creates a jolt and it wakes you up. You instantly hear the engine, and it's not a particularly enticing noise. I don't know how to call it. So yeah, there are some really interesting tidbits about this car. Apart from the sound insulation, the efficiency, the gearbox is once again not exactly what I expected. This dual clutch is quite hesitant in heavy traffic, especially once the battery runs out. As long as you're driving in electric mode, the car will be pretty silky smooth, like you would expect from a car driven by an electric motor. There's no hiccups in power delivery. Because of the way the electric motor is set up inside the transmission, it actually goes through the gears, and when you drive the car, you can actually feel the car changing gears. But that's okay. It's not as bad as it is when you're driving using the internal combustion engine, where you will notice the gears quite a lot, especially in heavy traffic where this gearbox seems a bit uncomfortable. It doesn't really know what gear to choose at times. It feels a bit clumsy. And yeah, it can become a bit bothersome in heavy traffic. But that's only inside the city centers. If you go outside the city, you will probably not feel any jitters whatsoever, because it does its job quite okay. And the car has plenty of power for overtakes even at higher speed, so you won't ever feel the need for more power. But you will feel that internal combustion engine revving pretty high, and you will actually hear it a lot when you're doing high speed overtakes. Yeah. Other than that, what more can I tell you? It's easy to drive around town. The steering is incredibly light. I don't really like the brake pedal feel, actually. I mean, you have regenerative braking, so the first part of the pedal run is a bit numb, so as long as the car uses its regenerative brakes. But then once you actually start braking with the mechanical side of things, with the brake pads pressing against the rotors, you actually feel it a bit too sensitive. I mean, a number of times I felt the car activating its ABS system. I don't know why. It starts to panic, especially if you're close to other cars in traffic. It starts to panic and it brakes a bit too much compared to your effort into the pedal. That's pretty weird. I've never seen that before, but I do like the fact that the car has adaptive regenerative braking, as I saw on a number of electric models. Basically, it uses its cameras and its sensors to read the situation around you, and as long as you don't have your foot on the gas pedal, so the car is actually slowing down. Right now, for example, it's increasing its regenerative braking because I'm approaching the car in front of me, so it's trying to recuperate as much energy as possible while decelerating. And I actually like this. It reminds me of one pedal driving on certain electric models. Now, another thing I like is the fact that Mercedes-Benz is actually brave with these plug-in hybrid models, and unlike most other car manufacturers, which only offer a maximum of 7.4 kilowatts In terms of charging power, we have 24 kilowatts over here because we have a fast charger installed on board. So you can use CCS chargers if you want. And I actually recharged the car last night and went from 0 to 100% in about 30 minutes. You get up to 80% in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Otherwise, if you're using an AC charger, you're gonna need about 1 hour and a half, 2 hours to replenish the battery, which is okay, but 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that's even better. That said, this has been my review of the Mercedes-Benz GLA 250e, the only plug-in hybrid you can get in the GLA range. It's a decent car, but it's definitely not for me. I hope you guys find this review useful. And until next time, don't forget to feed your passions and of course like, share and subscribe to this channel. Ciao.